So welcome everybody. Once again, my name is Donna Sweiden and I'm an adjunct career coach at the Career Development Center. I have been teaching networking for the last 20 years and it's one of my favorite topics because I know how difficult it is for so many people. I think most of us don't enjoy it. So I applaud you all for being here today. So let's see what we're going to cover. We have an ambitious outline because there is so much to talk about, and attempting to get through all of this in an hour is a lot. I'm probably going to try and go through it as quickly as possible and leave time for questions. But I think the moral of the story here is that it's going to take practice. That's really all this is. We're going to look at what is networking and why it's effective and why it's so important. What is the concept of informational interviewing and what does that mean? Networking at an event. Overcoming the most common fears that you have around networking, and I think there are probably many. Social media and networking, and that's a huge part today more than ever, especially in these current times where we are all somewhat isolated in our homes, but so good for introverts and for practicing the art of networking. So I look forward to talking about that. We're going to look quickly at your elevator pitch, and then we're going to look into how to tap Baruch's network, which is vast, and so there are so many things we can do with that. So let's look at what is the concept of networking. So the traditional dictionary definition, the noun form is that it's a supportive system of sharing information and services amongst individuals and groups having a common interest. Gosh, today more than ever, having having a healthy network can be really helpful for getting things as simple as toilet paper. But of course, in all seriousness, there are so many important reasons to have and cultivate a healthy network. And that's the verb, to cultivate people who can be helpful to one professionally, especially in finding employment or in moving to a higher position. Of course, in these times, creating and cultivating a network is helpful in every aspect of our lives. So it's really important to, think about not just in the scheme of professionally, but how having a healthy network of friends and colleagues is important in our life. So the art of networking, how does one practice this? So ordinarily, if we were in a workshop at the in this star conference room, would be chatting with a neighbor and exchanging names, etc. And I would also, if we had more time, set you up in groups and do that, or even here, put us into breakout rooms. But today, this is a power half hour, so we're going to go quickly and we will skip this part. But maybe if you could just quickly in the chat share one thing about yourself that you would want somebody to know about you. Let's see if anyone wants to do that, just checking that you're all listening. Well, maybe let me go back for a second. I will mention something about myself just to get it out there, and so you're not wondering where my accent comes from. I'm originally from South Africa, but I've lived in this country in the US for 22 years now. So that's a little bit of information about myself. And I happen to live in Stamford, Connecticut. So greetings from here. All right, well, we'll hold off on the practice part for now, and we'll move on to why is networking effective? And I think, at the end of the day, this also ties in with why it's so important. So what can we gain from this process? So I think it's really important to remember, and this is what I have mentioned to all the people that I've discussed networking with over the last 20 years is that networking isn't just a one-way relationship. It is about cultivating a two-way relationship. And, I think that is probably one of the biggest myths out there, and what I hear from so many people, which is why they don't want to do it, is that they don't want to be asking people for quote unquote help. It's the hardest thing to ask for help, right? I'm sure many of you are nodding your heads. And that's probably one of the most common refrains that I hear. And I think what's really important is that when you go into this process of networking, particularly for your job search, it's really important not to think about only asking for, do you have a job for me? Because that is absolutely not what the process of networking is about. What should be primarily on your mind is the idea that you are there to ask for advice and insight. So you have an excuse to connect with someone, because all you're doing is asking for advice. If you're at school, people want to help students even more. So you want to, take advantage of the time while you are a student to broaden and, your network as much as possible. Because especially in times like this, people have lots of advice. That's easy, that's free. Having a job up their sleeve isn't necessarily always, I should say, immediately available. Doesn't mean it won't be along the way in the future, but for now, people have advice and that they can provide, and that's a chance for you to build a relationship. And I think, one of the critical words here in this, starting out here is the concept of developing a relationship. I really want you to think about that. It's not just a one-off, but it is about maintaining a relationship. So you're getting insider information, you're building industry contacts and referrals, you're just discovering hidden jobs, because maybe in that process of asking for advice, the person you're talking with is going to be able to say, have you considered this? And of course, exploring career options. And one of the most important things I suggest to people is always in that opportunity where you do have their, somebody's ear, you can always ask them, can you suggest anybody else that I can talk to? That should be one of your goals, so that you can, further your networking efforts as much as possible. So, looking at why it's effective, according to Lindsay Pollack, one of, my colleague in the field of career development, career management, she noted that over 50 up to 70% of jobs are found through networking. I wonder, if you think about yourself and your career experience, work experience, how many of you have found them through classmates, through friends, through family members? For the most part, if I was sitting in a room of 25 people or 30 people, more than half would say that is how they found their last opportunity, or many of their opportunities throughout, their working life. It's important to remember that networking can provide valuable information, support, insight throughout your, your career exploration process. So especially if you are early on in your career, now is the time to, but not just now, obviously throughout our careers. This is a lifelong process, but cultivating your networking muscle now is so important. You will most likely find your next job through networking, because, and especially now, right, as things shift in our economy, knowing people is so critical. But even when things are more robust, it's a very popular way for people to find work. It is a skill that you will continue to rely on, develop, and hone throughout your lifetime. As someone who is, I guess, I've been out in the world and in life, and in building a career myself, networking is critical no matter what. So want to just remember that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay. You're building relationships. And at the end of the day, our success in life and in work is about the friends, the colleagues, and network that we create and we sustain over our lifetime. Fears. So I know there are a lot of fears around the concept of networking, as well as a lot of myths. So, I think the two are related. So many people feel that I don't want to impose. Why would people want to talk to me? That's probably a common one. I want to get a job on my own merits. Like, I can do this on my own. Some fierce independence there. I will look foolish, unprofessional if I'm not sure what I want to do or what I should say. But I don't have any connections is, something I hear from so many of my clients, who have come to me over the years. They've got a small network on LinkedIn, and they just like, I've got no one. I've asked everybody I know. There's no one else I can ask, is something I hear so often. And then, what about the cultural differences between myself and the people I need to talk to are intimidating? Sure, that might be the case, but at the end of the day, people are, I think it's just in part of human nature that we are designed to want to help others for the most part. Not everyone. Some people are too busy. Some people don't know how to help. But if we don't ask, you will not receive. So what's really important is for you to all learn that, you're not imposing. You are about creating a relationship, because what's also important is, for you to remember at the end of the day is that you don't know when this person might need help. You are there to help them as much as they are there to help you, because look how quickly things change, right? One day a person can have a job and be doing great, the next day not, because this is how our economy is. And so you want to realize, I think part of the empowering you in this process is to think about, what, I have other things I can share. You may have resources about where to go shopping for particular goods, that you need in times like this, or whatever it is, whatever information, you always have ways. There are always ways that you can help others. It may be that you're just, sharing it on, putting it forward, as opposed to, giving it back to that same person. But I think that as long as you realize that whatever you glean from this networking process and what you gain, you can pay it forward. I think that's important. So, that is the cycle of giving, that, you're not just receiving, but you're also in this process to give. So ultimately, hopefully that also helps you overcome this, I think a somewhat negative mindset about the concept of networking. And, I think it's really important to remember that if somebody doesn't get back to you, don't take it personally. I think, people generally, are often overwhelmed. They're working, especially in New York City, right? Our lives are so incredibly full and demanding that it's really important to move on to the next person. Don't just wait for one person to get back to you. And I can't emphasize enough, and I know we're going to get there, now I have to be conscious of the time, but LinkedIn is your friend. And now more than ever, where we really are, resigned to all being, quote unquote introverts, if you will, having to stay at home and, figure out how to make the most of the internet. There are so many opportunities, and maybe this is the opportunity that you need to push yourself to, nudge yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit and start reaching out to people. So let's look at what is the concept of informational networking, or an informational interview. So that's kind of, if you will, the starting point if you are about to reach out to someone in your network, someone that you've been introduced to, or somebody that you're going to reach out to on LinkedIn, let's say, or that, on Instagram or wherever it is. So this is, a specific kind of networking that you are looking to glean very specific information. Now, it says here typically 20 to 30 minutes, but I will say this, and there are some suggestions in in this PowerPoint as we go on about that concept of time when you're asking people for time. Now, I think that is one has to be careful initially to not overwhelm somebody with how much time you need. So, this is how much time it'll probably be, and people will be generous because they realize they're helping, somebody young who's trying to embark on their career. And people are, I think, human nature also by design, we are generous and want to help. So that's typically how long it will last. But one of the things I will, reiterate later on is that when you're asking for help in a quick email or a message on LinkedIn, maybe say, what, I would love to chat for 10 or 15 minutes of can you spare 10 or 15 minutes of your time, so that you don't initially scare people. Because I think, when people are working and they're just scrambling, they've got their family at home, they're working from their remote office at home, and they've got children and whatever it is, the other demands, people might, react. But I think at the end of the day, when you get on a call and start this conversation, people get into it because they love to share, they want to help you, and the time won't be an issue. So what are the goals of this informational interview? So one, learning about the jobs you may like, to see if they're a fit, with your interests, your skills, and your personality. Obviously, there are many other things that can help you. All the assessments we do at the Career Center are designed to help you understand that. But talking with somebody and hearing about what it is that they love about that job, what they don't like, how, what kind of person is a good fit for it, hearing it directly from somebody who works in the field, nothing can substitute that, hearing it firsthand. Secondly, developing a relationship with professionals in that industry may lead to referrals. So that's really, really critical. And I guess ultimately it's the goal here is to expand your network. So it's all related. Okay, so definitely they are one way to gather information and develop relationships. They are not about asking for job opportunities or getting your foot in the door once you've applied for a position. They may be, I think, people are, if the possibility arises. What's important to think about networking, and this is my analogy that I have come up with over the years, especially the time of the last recession, because I had just, I had been working in as a career coach for many years. In 2008, boom, right? The world changed, 2009. And the concept that I help people, imagine is that you are planting seeds in a secret garden, right? You're planting all these magic seeds that you do not know when they are going to flourish. You do not know when they're going to grow. So right now, you may think that, oh my gosh, I can't do anything. Everyone is bunkered down in their homes and people don't want to talk to me and nothing is happening. People are being laid off. What a waste of time. But that's the wrong way to think about this. What's really important is for you to think about, what? I'm going to use this time now while I'm not doing anything. I've got my classes, but I can't go to work. As maybe you have student work or part-time work, it's not happening. Use this time to slowly plant your magic garden, so that when the time does come and the economy starts to rebound, you will have these connections, and that is when you can start to regenerate. You can plant, do some more watering in your secret garden. So I think that's important to think about. It's about cultivating that relationship initially, and then once you have it, you water and grow that relationship for future opportunities. Scheduling the informational interview. So obviously you can, go online, you can through the, I think, one place to start, and we'll kind of allude to it in the workshop, is going into Baruch College, the alumni network groups, and seeing who is there. You can see, here is an example, and you will get this. You'll get a copy of this PowerPoint, and reach out, tell people where you are, what it is that you are looking to do, and what you want to know. Be very specific about what information you are trying to learn and what you are looking for from that person. Because if you're too general, then the person can't help you. You want to be specific and make it easy for others to help you. So here's an example of an email that you can send out. I should mention, with everybody's attention, so we're all so distracted, and that was even before now, where we're all kind of stuck at home. I think it's important to try and be as brief as possible. Obviously, put in all the critical information, but brevity is key. So the key information, and just be humble and curious, and demonstrate that you just would like to learn, and be patient, because people, as I mentioned, people are busy. You may not hear back immediately from people, especially if you are reaching out on LinkedIn. But I think if you're patient but persistent, people will reach out and help. So some samples. Let's see. Whoops. Let me go back a minute there. Sample topics for informational interviews. So, how do you prepare for getting into that industry? So, for example, from your read, you can say something like this: I've learned that someone at your level needs a master's degree and a few years of experience. Would you agree this is typical? What specific skill sets should I be looking for to develop, to enter into this industry? So asking very specific questions, does everyone need a master's degree? What avenues can I, would you recommend I could pursue at a, what other ideas? I saw, study, if you have access, say, to their resume on LinkedIn, you can study their career trajectory and ask them about their career trajectory and what mistakes or what suggestions they have from their own experience. Professional associations, so valuable. I can't underscore that enough. You can mention something, I've learned that the AMA and the Center for Communications are two excellent professional associations. Are there others that you would recommend becoming a member of? Let's see. Have professional associations been helpful to you in your career development, right? Just very, I guess, these are somewhat general, and, I guess that's pretty straightforward. What does a typical workday look like? What do you see as growth or trends in your field? What other opportunities are there in the field, if you weren't going to go directly into it? So any resume tips? So one thing you can do and say, this is my resume right now. Do you have any recommendations recommendations for my resume? So this is a little bit of a sneaky way to share your resume with somebody that you're doing an informational interview with. You're not going to come out and ask them directly for a job, but you are being a little sneaky and saying, what, this is my resume. Do you have any advice for my resume? So now you are planting your resume in that person's inbox. Obviously, it's up to them what they're going to do with it rather. And, they may or may not feel, look at your resume and say, wow, this person's got so much going for them. And I should definitely, I will forward your resume on to our HR. That is, something that many people who do embark on this type of networking here, I will, that's not always what you want, though, because if it is just, then that's and that's one of the reasons why you don't want to just say, yeah, can I give you my resume? And, and they'll forward it on to HR. What's wrong with that? It's very passive. You're not creating an opportunity to have engagement with the person you're reaching out to, right? You're really not asking much of them at all. You're not getting a chance to cultivate a relationship, build an impression with them, have a conversation. That's what's really important here. Because if you just say, hey, you know what, can you help me? And, is there a chance for me to get a job in your company? They don't necessarily have access to all the jobs in your company. What they're going to do is say, I'll forward your resume on to HR. That's not the answer you want. You want to build a relationship with that person, and you ultimately want to know if there are other people in the industry or in the company who could provide further advice. Your goal in this networking process, at least for informational interviewing, if you will, is advice and cultivating and expanding your network. Remember, you are growing a secret garden here. Networking at an event. So I know that, well, now apart from virtual events, everything is on hold. But well, I should also say that in normal times, in regular, when life was more normal, quote unquote normal, most people also resisted going to these kind of events. But I mean, I know, Baruch College is generally hosts so many different types of events for their students and alumni to get involved, to meet people who are working, either, former alumni, other students. It doesn't matter where you are. Every opportunity where you're in a group of people is a networking opportunity. So it's so important to, remember that. But let's say in we're back in post-corona times. We'll be post-corona times rather, and you need to be thinking about where can you go to be surrounded by like-minded people in your field. So see what you can do to understand the structure of the event before you go. Look online. Can you or at least receive a list of attendees on the website beforehand? Will professionals be wearing name tags or color-coded by industry? Important to learn that type of information so you can really maximize your time while you are there. Sometimes the easiest way to start out an event, especially if you go by yourself and you know no one, and I know how daunting that is for 99% of people, right? For the most part, I think most people, even the extroverts, are not necessarily excited about going to an event where they don't know anybody. It takes courage, and one has to be bold to start talking with people you don't know. But you might find that everyone there is in the same boat as you, so it's not as difficult as you think. But a good rule of thumb is to go to the drinks or the food, right? Isn't that where it's easy to linger and to start conversations about the cocktails or the snacks or whatever the case may be. Approach another person who's alone, because invariably they don't know anybody either. So that's an opportunity that you have. Introduce a friend or colleague to someone and vice versa. Join a group and introduce yourself. You may need to, breathe in a big, breathe in, just say you can do this and dive right into the conversation. Everyone there has started at some point and realize it is not easy to be at these events and will invite you into the conversation. It's just a matter of breaking that ice initially. And then, of course, the last part here is to have your story ready, right? Your pitch. Who are you? You know, what are you studying? What is the most interesting thing about you, or not? You know, it's okay if you don't necessarily say immediately who you are, but I think, you know, this is a very quick and summary of who you are, right? I'm at Baruch. I'm a senior, you know, in public affairs. I have 2 years. I mean, this might seem a little bit of overkill if it's a one-on-one conversation. You know, but you could say, you know, I'm actually in the, you just, you know, make it a little bit more, because this is like, I have 2 years of work experience. This is not an interview. I think it's important for you to think of for your story in a more relaxed way, you know, saying, well, you know, I'm about to, you know, start looking for work, and, you know, I, you know, from maybe in a position in the nonprofit sector, what do you do, right? And then you engage with them, and then you can jump into and build on the conversation from there. It's important you don't kind of, I think, just blurt out your whole resume in a, you know, initially. Give it time to unfold as you embark on a conversation at a networking event. So that's that. Important things to remember. I think, and actually that's precisely, you know, what I think I was trying to convey there is, don't make a hard sales pitch, right? When things are light and casual, only, you know, when you're maybe getting more into a conversation, and, you know, you never know who you're going to end up talking to. You know, a couple of years ago, I was at a wedding, and I was chatting with a woman who I landed up sitting next to, never met her in my life. And I was telling her about my skills and expertise. And it turned out that she had a nonprofit, and landed up saying, you know what, I might have a consulting gig for you. And I, a couple of weeks after that, we met, and lo and behold, I started, you know, doing some work for her. But it, you know, our conversation started out very light and casual, and it literally, we're at a wedding, and then by the end of the evening, she had passed, you know, shared her card with me, and invited me to come and give workshops at her nonprofit. So you never know where things are going to lead. And I think it's important, you know, you can be networking at an event, I mean, at a wedding, or a, you know, a career fair. You never know, the opportunity will arise. You never know when that opportunity will arise. All right, so gosh, so much to cover here. I'm going to try and go a little bit quicker. Be up on current events. You know, I think, well, now it's certainly not difficult, but, you know, think about, you know, you may or may not enjoy talking about current events. So that's, you know, that's something to think about. But there's so many other things you can talk about. You know, come up with open-ended questions. You know, I think at the end of the day, at some events, it's the art of small talk, at least initially, and, you know, learning about people. I think the most important thing here, the most important skill, I should say, is curiosity. Obviously, I think it goes without saying, don't use inappropriate language, don't tell jokes, or, you know, I think there are a couple of rules of thumb of the things that you shouldn't be addressing, right? Politics, religion, etc. And, you know, don't, especially, I think, you know, at events that are more professional as opposed to personal and social, don't go too much into your life history or personal life. I have a quick question for the group. Here's a quick random question. Who do you think are better at networking, introverts or extroverts? Please answer in the chat. I'll give you, I don't know, 5 seconds to respond, because we do have to continue. But I'm curious to what people will say in terms of who are better networkers, introverts or extroverts. All right, well, I'm going to give you the answer because we're going to run out of time. Well, Alyssa says it doesn't matter. Well, Alyssa and everyone else, believe it or not, introverts actually happen to be more successful in the process of networking sometimes, and I'll tell you why. It's somewhat counterintuitive. Introverts tend to be better listeners than extroverts, and listeners ask more questions. So ultimately, the art of conversation is about engaging, asking questions, demonstrating curiosity, and developing a relationship from there. So I encourage everyone to, doesn't matter, you're right, at the end of the day, Alyssa, to some degree, it doesn't matter. If you are an introvert or an extrovert, what's really important is to practice the art of curiosity. And Brandon, you're right? I think, we would ordinarily think extroverts because we are more inclined to be outgoing and engage with people. But I think research shows that introverts are better listeners, and so that is where becomes a really important skill as you're trying to engage with people. So let's, I guess this is a good segue into common networking errors. Let's see, everyone listening to this webinar, let's see, are now better networkers. Fantastic, I hope so. So actually, I guess, now it's really important to look at the don'ts, right? Don't be unprepared. Obviously, I think that goes for, well, everything in life at the end of the day, but as you are embarking on very intentional networking efforts, so if you're going to an event or if you're reaching out to someone, do your due diligence, do your research, right? Follow up, right? Failure to follow up is a lost opportunity. Forgetting to obtain contact information or other names. So as I mentioned, an opportunity when you are engaging with someone is to say, who else can I, who else would you recommend I connect with? Not being appropriately formal. So I think it really is important to put on your most professional hat that you can, and engage and demonstrate your best self. Managing your expectations, right, is really important. I think that, especially if some people think, well, networking is going to solve everything and that people should get back to them immediately. And if they don't, it's because they're not worthy, and it's the end of the world and nobody likes them and they're never going to land a job. That is not the case at all. I think at the end of the day, it's like everything else when you're developing your career and managing your career in general, it's so important to be patient but persistent and managing your expectations, because if we have too many expectations of ourselves, of others, it's very likely that we'll be let down, and that can only lead to a cycle of more negative thinking, and the more negative self-talk, I think is just leads to a spiral of lack of success and lack of motivation, and telling yourself, well, what, networking doesn't work. So at the end of the day, it's really important for you to go in with a very open mind and manage the expectations and keep on going. Just like anything else, right? If we experience rejection or, lack of follow up from, people that you reach out to, move on to the next. Don't wait around for, all the people that you reach out to follow up, because that may not happen for all kinds of reasons that most likely have absolutely nothing to do with you. Don't ever lie about who you are or what you are. Don't look bored, right, when you're talking with someone. Obviously, even if you have to feign enthusiasm, do your best to engage. Let's see, talking on your phone or texting while you're at an event is obviously a no-no. And if you are, this is definitely at events, don't drink alcohol, be very careful. You want to make the best impression wherever you are. So whether you're at a wedding, where I could have obviously had lots to drink, or, at a professional event, you want to always, be your best self. Okay. So linking, social media. Now, I have been, I've been teaching networking for 20 years. I've been teaching LinkedIn since, for the last 15, 16, even longer. And social media has transformed everything for the process of networking, and now more than ever we have no choice but to rely on it. But it offers so many opportunities, and this is one of my favorite things to talk about, particularly LinkedIn. I've been training people how to leverage and navigate LinkedIn for many years, and it takes a lot of one has to learn how to do it, but once you figure out, it's a gold mine, and it's just a matter of taking advantage of everything that's on there. So, over the years, I've referred to LinkedIn as if you're going to a trade fair or you're going to a professional conference. Facebook is like your backyard barbecue, right? In the days when and I guess, summer's coming up, but that's what Facebook is like, going to, your friends for dinner. And Twitter is like this huge, big cocktail party where there are a gazillion people and everyone's talking at once, but you never know who you might meet. So Instagram is, I haven't really thought of Instagram, and the others I haven't thought about, but over the years I've talked about the other three a lot. Now more than ever, Instagram is like Twitter, if you will. There's so much happening, and you can, connect with anybody that you want, as you can on Twitter. Personal websites, if some professionals, I can refer to the last recession, having, been a coach to thousands of people over the last Great Recession. People had to be really creative and create their own websites. So now that is something that you could potentially do, and use it as a networking tool. Or if you find other people, businesses, these are the avenues that you can connect with people. Blogs, this you might not think, how can you network with blogs? Well, people are putting out information, content, sharing information. Some people are using LinkedIn as their blog platform, and you have the opportunity to comment. That is where you can start to cultivate relationships. So very important, I guess, on the list of no-nos, right, in terms of social media. Be careful what you put out there. And this is so true, right? Over the years, I've had, I can just give you one quick example. I want to leave time for questions. A couple of years ago, I got a call from somebody who was hiring for his marketing agency, and he says, he called me up and, Donna, you won't believe it. I was all ready to hire this young guy. He was about 25 years old, and I decided to do a Google search on him. And, I discovered this really heinous, terrible things that he had said on Facebook during a prior election. So political stuff. He had shared his views, which were somewhat ugly and at the time. And, I think we all tend to get very expressive when it comes to politics, but we won't go there. And this guy, CEO of this marketing company was like really, I kind of shocked that this really fantastic guy who was about to consider as his ideal candidate for this role had said all these horrific things on Facebook. And when he called him up to say, look, I was excited to offer you a opportunity with my company, but I was really surprised to see what you had said on Facebook. And the young guy, he's 25 years old. He said, well, gosh, how dare you, go and find these things about me. There's none of your business, etc. So he completely dropped the ball and the opportunity to redeem himself, to apologize, to say, well, those were when I was young and stupid and said things without thinking, and I know better now. Two lessons here. One is, don't put embarrassing, thoughtless stuff on the internet, wherever it is, whether it's your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Be careful what you say, and everything stays on the internet. And two, I think we all have to be able to learn from our mistakes and be willing to admit them. So those were two things I learned from that experience that I share with my clients now. So what opportunities are there? And, so many opportunities in normal times on campus. And, I don't know, wherever you are in at the phase of your student life at Baruch, if I can just encourage you, every opportunity you get to go to any one of these, whether it's the employee information sessions where you have the chance to engage in a very small group, ideally wait till the end to go and talk to the people presenting and get their business cards, or get all those. I remembered Baruch going to the employee information sessions. They were so valuable and absolutely packed with really valuable information. It's like a networking informational interview, if you will, and then you have the chance potentially to talk to the person who's presenting. Student clubs, use every opportunity you can to cultivate your network of other students, because guess what, all of those guys, people in those clubs and are going to be working. They could be working as you speak now. So many Baruch students are working while they're students too. So take the opportunity to network at all the fairs, obviously, but as well with your fellow students and alum, of course. So both of those are also valuable. And I think, just you can see all the off-campus opportunities are endless, right? Social settings. In normal times when we go to the gym, weddings, I've, met people on the train. So that's Metro North, not necessarily on the subway. You probably want to be more cautious there. But, every opportunity you get to meet somebody new is an opportunity to build your network, because those people might be able to help you in many ways. And remember, it's important to think about you might be able to help them too. Coming to the end here about your pitch. So this is a whole webinar, and I guess a whole workshop in and of itself that requires practice. And, it's a chance to share your story, your unique story, I should say, to capture someone's attention in a few seconds. And literally while it takes the time to ride down an elevator. And I have literally had that opportunity where I was in the elevator with somebody really important, and had to think about what I wanted that person to know. So you're not going to say the same thing to everybody, because you might have to tweak and we do have to tweak our pitch for our audience. So remember, what are the key elements about who you are, what's important to you, and what questions you have for that person possibly, or what is really important for them to know about you in those 30 seconds that you have that person's attention. Your elevator pitch, or your personal pitch, is your marketing tool and includes who you are, what you've accomplished, your future goals as it relates to, your internship. Now, what's being conveyed here is really in probably what you would articulate in a more formal situation, where you are outlining your who you are and what you have to offer. You have to remember that it's important to tweak it as pertains to the situation you're in. At the end of the day, it's really important to remember that the impression you make in that 1 minute can determine that person's immediate impression of you, and what will become available in the future. Now, obviously, you can use it in all different kinds of venues, but I think it's important to remember that you're going to modify it, whatever the situation you're in. Okay, so I've been going fast and furiously. Some key points to remember before we wrap up. Always come to a networking situation with positive energy and enthusiasm, even though I know that's probably not how you feel. particularly events where you're going in there and you don't know who anybody there, it's intimidating. So even if you have to fake it for a bit, once you start talking with people, hopefully that will help energize you. Most important is to be yourself, be authentic, be honest. Being vulnerable is something that people can connect to. I think, if any of you have heard of an amazing woman called Brené Brown, I love her books. She talks about vulnerability, because if you're all guarded and protecting yourself and don't want people to know who you are, people aren't going to connect. And so it's really important that you do that. Another thing that's not mentioned here is that when you tell your story, that is an opportunity. In fact, it's actually there's research has been conducted around this, and it has been demonstrated that sharing your story with others, when it's a very unique, your own personal story, actually connects with people's brain waves. There's synergy in our neurons in our brain. So sharing something very unique, very personal, that pertains to your professional story, can really make a huge impact when connecting with someone, so that you are memorable and remain make an impression, which is really important. And give as much as you take. So I think, if there's one thing, I guess, among part, in addition to the part about your story and vulnerability, it's reciprocity. That cultivating your network is about giving back. And that, they say, karma is a boomerang. Well, that whole concept is really at the foundation of what networking is about. Follow through on typo here on following up. So follow up is really important, right? And follow through, maintain that connection. Don't be too pushy. Be persistent over time, and a thank you note goes a long way, especially in these, I guess, crazy times where we're all stuck away at our home. Whether it's an email, which is the fastest way, if you are somebody who likes to write personal letters, and you have access to a person's mailing address, which may or may not be the case, a personal written thank you note is a wonderful opportunity, to really connect in a more personal way. Yeah, a lot to remember here. So integrity and, let's see, wellness when networking and cultivating your overall, job search. Let's look at this, because this is, I think, kind of going into this whole process a little bit deeper. And this is kind of speaks to the authenticity, what was mentioned there. Integrity means being honest and genuine, taking ownership for where you are in your life, in your career, recognizing your impact, being consistent, understanding that success will come and go, but integrity is forever. So that integrity almost speaks to the example I gave you of that person who didn't conduct himself so well, I don't know, just with integrity on Facebook, for example. But I think it's, about bringing your best self into your life and into your work. More than ever, practicing wellness is today, can't emphasize that enough. Being proactive about managing your stress and anxiety. So I know that networking requires so many people to step out of their comfort zone. So figure out, find a meditation for yourself that can help you manage your stress around, putting yourself out there, especially if you are an introvert. Even networking on LinkedIn is going to be stressful no matter what. Progress, not perfection. I think that's really key here. Managing your own expectations of yourself. Just create some small incremental goals for yourself, and remember, you're not necessarily going to get responses from everybody. So that's not about you. You want a handful of responses. Give everybody time to respond. And if they don't, move on to the next thing. Say no so you can say yes. So it's important to really be selective, in regards to what, what you can do, even what you can offer of yourself potentially. And, don't say yes to everything. Volunteering is a great opportunity, I should say, to network in healthy times. But even now, I think helping people, everyone, so many people are struggling, and there is so much hardship going around, that finding ways to be helpful to others on a selective basis will come back to you in some way, even if it just makes you feel good about yourself. That in itself, gratitude has incredible health generating elements and qualities to it. So helping out, and then, once again, remember, karma is a boomerang. So putting out good is only going to come back to you. And at the end of the day, just taking care of yourself and surrounding yourself with people who support you. And you may be becoming one of those people who supports others. So once again, knowing who in your network, particularly at Baruch, the Career Center, I should probably say, is we at the Career Development Center are all there to help you. We are your first, hopefully one of your immediate places to go to asking for help. And we are there. That's our job. That's our primary role. And we want to help you succeed in every which way that you can. So I hope that you will reach out for help. Having run a career center myself and worked full-time in a career center many years ago, and now having worked outside the career center, I should mention that one of the most common things that I see are people who graduate without leveraging all that is offered by their career services. And I really want to encourage you to, take the opportunity to use that as your first step for self-care in your career management process. So take advantage of that. Lastly, just opportunities and resources here. We, all the career counselors at the Career Center offer mock interviews, that support in just building your network. If you, now that you've taken this this webinar, what do you need to do to start? I'm sure you hopefully have a lot of ideas, but if you're struggling, reach out to a counselor. I'd be more than happy to kind of sit with you and help you brainstorm initial steps that you can take to start to cultivate your own network, particularly while you're at home and you can't go to events. Think about all of these wonderful resources that you can access through the Career Center, Going Global, Focus 2, and Vault. So many resources. What is a mock interview module? So I don't know if, let's see. So I am a new, Alyssa, I should mention, I just started working again after about 15 years, actually no, about 12 years of working I last worked at the Career Center 12 years ago, and I'm helping out again now. So I'm not 100% sure what that module is, but I have a feeling it is either I do know, number one, that we conduct mock interviews. So if you set up a counsel, I believe it's a counseling session, or it's probably, I don't know how it is set up right now in Star Search, but you could certainly call the center and get that clarified for you. But I'm assuming it is a module in Star Search, where that will help you develop your interviewing skills. So I will have to, research that, but you could probably, reach out to, the Career Center and call them up, or, email them and find out, or just go into Star Search and dig and see what that is. But I'm assuming that it is a module that can help you prep for a mock interview. So there we go. All right, excellent. I should mention one of my favorite things is helping people prep for interviewing and mock interviewing. You know, just getting you comfortable of all of this intimidates you a little bit. I know for myself and all the other counselors, we're all there to help you just practice this process and get more comfortable at it, so that when you need to get out there and do it, you are comfortable and confident, and you know, you feel empowered to ask the questions that you need to ask. All right, well, we are going on an hour here since, and I don't know if anyone else has any other questions. Just lastly, you can see all of these wonderful newsletters and you know, features that come out of the Career Center every week. Please avail yourself to all of them as much as you can. You know, I know that the whole staff are working fearlessly to keep things going and normal in these very abnormal times. So, you know, do what you can to take advantage of all of them. And the blog, you can see here, if you're not already you know, accessing the resources on the SCDC blog, go for it. You know, I realize that might be too much, but whatever is manageable for you, and depending where you are in your, you know, schooling, I think it's important that you just take advantage of all the resources, because of all the career centers that I've seen, the Baruch Star Career Development Center is really one of the best. So take advantage of it while you can. Lastly, please feel free to connect. I want to just mention again, my name is Donna Sweiden. I have counseling hours on a Thursday afternoon every week. Happy to connect on LinkedIn. And as you can tell, there are so many opportunities for you to connect. It's can get a little overwhelming, I recognize that, but find the portal that is the one that's most comfortable for you. So, you know, that's your place to start. That's your cue, is go where you're most comfortable, and then build on from there. So you can see right now, nothing has changed in terms of walk-in hours. Even though these are virtual walk-in hours, there's still, you can still get counseling help. But you know, we're all working virtually, and it, you know, I know that things are running quite seamlessly. I have been working virtually with clients and students from around the world for the last 10 years. So would be more than happy to, you know, talk with any of you. And yeah, I think that's the end of the show. I hope that was helpful, and I welcome you all to reach out. You're very welcome, Brandon. It was a pleasure having you on the call. Please let us know if you have any questions, and you know, happy networking, everybody.